First of all, let me thank everyone for being here today. I'm Reverend Dr. William Barber from the North Carolina NAACP, and also a convener of the Forward Together moral movement. I think that everybody here has received the news alert as it relates to this issue before us. Our procedure today is I'm going to invite my good friend and colleague in the ministry, Bishop Tonyia Rawls, as we have been discussing this matter and being very prayerful, and we issued a call to both faith leaders and to advocates to stand up in the deepest moral sense against this legislation. I'm going to ask her to come first and make some comments from a Charlotte perspective, and then I'm going to lay out a perspective that I think, particularly out of the media, we need to understand where this comes from and the history. We cannot understand what's going on in a small vacuum. And then I have Attorney Al McShirley, who some years ago, as you know, was awarded the leading civil rights lawyer in the country by the NAACP. He received the highest award for civil rights law in the country from the NAACP, and he's here. And after these two perspectives, then we'll answer questions. I'm glad to be here in this church, in this sanctuary. I'm glad to be here where the pastor is Dr. Nancy Petty, who's my good friend and my sister, as we stand together and fight against all forms of discrimination and hate. Bishop Rawls.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Bishop Tonyia Rawls, and I am pastor of Sacred Souls Community Church and founder and executive director of the Freedom Center for Social Justice. Both are based in Charlotte, North Carolina. I came to Charlotte 17 years ago from Washington, D.C., because then my denomination had commissioned me to open its first affirming congregation in North Carolina. This would be a church that was safe space for LGBTQ people and others who believe that all of God's creation was worthy of love, protection, and safe space of sanctuary. I was led to Charlotte because I was excited about two things: her people and her possibilities. She was a city that was already great, but was still finding her way, finding her voice, and growing in her understanding of her citizens and their needs. I stand here today saying that while she is far from perfect, I applaud the fact that Charlotte is staying in the fight for justice and equality for all of our citizens. My faith in that vision of a city that would honor all of her citizens with dignity and allow the law to truly be blind as it relates to gender identity, race, class, sexual orientation, and other human markers. We were challenged last year as I sat through more than 100 testimonies when a bill came up that said we will extend liberties and we will extend protections to gay and lesbian people, but not to trans people. Right. It was a traumatic experience, and one that took me weeks to recover from, as I saw person after person holding up a Bible and with misinterpretation of Scripture suggesting that somehow there were some who were more worthy of God's love and civic protections than others. In that particular vote of 6-5, a law was passed that said everyone except trans people would be allowed to be extended these kind of basic human and civic dignities. 1 year later, my faith was restored as our mayor, Jennifer Roberts, and city council, in a vote of 7-4, expanded the non-discrimination ordinance to include gender identity. Now cabs and restaurants, schools and other public establishments could no longer discriminate against this already very vulnerable population. I am here today because our state governor, Pat McCrory, and General Assembly has stripped the city that I love of the protections we extended to our citizens. In a $42,000 special session, House Bill 2 was passed. A decision was made to not just strip Charlotte of her rights to govern as she sees fit for her citizens, but expanded the effort to to all cities in our beloved North Carolina. This immoral and likely illegal maneuver stripped workers and other cities, workers and other vulnerable populations, rather, of their protections as well. We are under siege, North Carolina. It is not guns and weapons that threaten us. No, it is now something much more insidious. Our democracy is being attacked by twisted views and values that use the most vulnerable to incite fear in the vulnerable. This bill was not about bathrooms. It's about votes. Just follow the political trail of crumbs that was left. The North Carolina Same-Sex Marriage Amendment, better known as Amendment 1, was on the May 8th, 2012 ballot in the state of North Carolina as legislatively referred constitutional amendment, which was approved. The measure defined marriage in the state constitution as between one man and one woman, and banned any other type of domestic legal union, such as civil unions and domestic partnerships. Same-sex marriage was already illegal in North Carolina.
That's right.
Only 14% of the people affected by Amendment 1 were actually gay and lesbian. The rest were heterosexuals and families, most who lost domestic partner benefits and protections just because someone screamed gay. And that cry led people to vote against the best interest of their own families and communities. November 6, 2012, Mitt Romney won the swing state of North Carolina in the presidential election by a mere 2.2% of the total voting population. Some of those votes went to him because of the fear some felt that gay people may receive expanded rights and protections. On that same fateful day, Pat McCrory became the 74th governor of North Carolina. The conservative arm of the Republican Party won complete control of state government for the first time since Reconstruction, and our courts became hostile towards progressive actions. After that conservative election sweep, we did not hear anything at all about concerns in reference to gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, or queer people. That is, until now.
Right.
HB 2, like Amendment 1, is a politically engineered ploy to sway just enough votes to impact electoral decisions. This is not about bathrooms, North Carolina. It's about money and votes.
That's right.
That's exactly right.
When we think about the things that we are facing as a state that is faced with so many challenges, to go and have government do things that does not protect us is outrageous and immoral. 4 years later, instead of yelling gay, they yelled trans and bathrooms as a strategy to use the most vulnerable again to incite fear in the hearts of the vulnerable. It has been an effective strategy that dates back to slavery, Jim Crow, suffrage, and the civil rights movement. We as citizens have got to stop this madness. It is on us to stop the madness.
That's right. That's right.
This is what HB 2 really accomplished. In addition to putting members of the trans community, including students in high schools and colleges, at greater risk, it removed protections of living wages, gave employers the ability to fire or not hire people just because of who they love. Children in the workplace lost protections. The disabled, people with chronic diseases are all at greater risk because of HB 2. Worse yet, employers can now discriminate without fear of impunity, because if an employer or employee feels that they have been discriminated against on the basis of race or age or other human identifiers, they can now no longer sue in our state courts. The courts have shut down their doors on those who are now discriminated against. I close my remarks by saying this issue is bigger than HB 2.
That's right.
It places a moral imperative before all of us to protect all citizens all the time and not just some. This is our moment. As citizens of North Carolina, Charlotte's legislators took a stand to protect all of her citizens, and it was struck down. So we now rise up and raise our voices to say, not on our watch, not at this time. We will no longer allow the governor and General Assembly to sacrifice lives for votes and money. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bishop. It is very clear what is going on here in the state of North Carolina. And because we're started a little late, I want to first of all thank all of the persons who are here, the various organizations. I'm going to ask you to call your names of your organizations in just a moment. And I want to my left, I have Reverend Curtis Gatewood, who is the HK-on-J Forward Together Moral Coordinator. And leaving this space today, he will be working, and we'll be working in tandem to coordinate our partners, coalition partners, as we move towards April the 25th. Our hope and prayer is that by April 21st, this hate bill, and from henceforth we will call it Hate Bill 2. Hate Bill 2. Now I want to make some comments that are important as we understand what's really going on here. First of all, I want to challenge my brothers and sisters in the media to not allow people to say they support this because they are evangelical, because it's the religious thing to do. I'm an evangelical. We're doing a revival now across this country called Time for a Moral Revolution. Evangelicalism in the Bible starts with, the only place you really see it is these words: the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, for he hath anointed me to preach good news to the poor. Evangel is good news. That scripture ends with, and to declare the acceptable year of the Lord. In other words, to welcome all those who have been made to feel unaccepted. There is no place in faith for hate, and you cannot limit a moral understanding to how you stand against gay people, where you stand on prayer in the school, and where you stand on abortion. In fact, that's a form of misguided hypocrisy and heresy from a religious perspective. That's right. True religion starts with how you care for the poor, the least of these, the broken and the marginalized and the pushed out and the stranger. That's right. In every major faith, from the Old Testament to the New Testament. So let's not make this about where people stand religiously, because to claim that one is taking a religious perspective as a way to discriminate against somebody is actually to go counter to God. Yes. I just came in from outside. In my faith, we believe that God made everything, including the sun. Yes. That sun out there is not discriminating on who it shines on.
That's right. That's right. Yes.
The sun shines on everybody. Walk out there. That sun doesn't ask you if you're gay. That sun doesn't ask you if you're straight. If God made that sun, it shines on it. If it starts raining, the same thing. So I want to make that point. Number two, Hate Bill 2.
That's good, Hate Bill 2.
That's what we call it, what we're going to call it from now. Hate Bill 2 is a race-based, class-based, yes, homophobic, yes, discriminatory bill. And listen to my brothers and sisters listening by stream and the media. That is nothing more than the politics of Jesse Helms revisited.
That's right.
Let's be clear when we talk about this.
Yes.
This is the politics of Jesse Helms revisited through the mechanisms of groups like the Extreme Tea Party Nation, the Family Research Council, and ALEC.
That's right.
And it's designed to divide communities, yes, purely for electoral purposes.
True.
It's not about bathrooms, just like segregated bathrooms was never about bathrooms.
That's right.
It was about a political statement. It was about oppression. It was about having public signs of domination. This, what we'll see going on now, is the old Southern strategy where gay, trans, and homosexuality is the new bad word.
Yep.
In fact, the new N-word.
That's right. That's right.
I'm not mentioning any words this morning. It's a tool of division in Southern politics, the same way the N-word used to be a tool.
That's right.
Leonard Zeskin, one of the great researchers, says that the Tea Party nation, the far, far right, or the far, far wrong, as I like to say, and the Family Research Council. Remember when the Family Research Council came out with the marriage amendment, and when the judge released the paperwork, he said, they said it wasn't even about gay marriage. It was about splitting the gay and black vote.
That's right.
They said that, not us, and the judge released that. Leonard Zeskin makes it clear that this homophobia and racialized code words and politicking is a tactic, but it's a tactic that Jesse Helms mastered.
Yes.
Jesse Helms from this state was the best at mixing race and homophobia into a political weapon. Amen. Now, a lot of times we don't talk about that. Many times we talk about Jesse Helms, we talk about the 1990s ad when he had the black hand come in and take the job from a white hand. And we have, but in North Carolina, to understand what's going on in our legislature, and understand what's going on with Pat McCrory and Phil Berger and Tim Moore, you have to understand they are reaching back in that playbook because of the shifting demographics, because they know that they can't win elections if they are fair.
That's right.
It's no surprise we had the marriage amendment in 2012 during the second election of President Obama. We've had the worst voter suppression in this state, the worst voter suppression in this state, in the country, at a very time that North Carolina has had 60, 70% of the black vote turnout, and we know that more progressives have voted for regressive politicians, but the regressives have won because of the trickery they've engaged in through redistricting.
That's right.
And apartheid redistricting and voter suppression.
Which has been declared illegal.
Which is now being declared illegal. Yep. But it wasn't illegal on the front end because of the ending of pre-clearance. We have to understand this context. You have people who are standing up saying that the religious perspective, for instance, is prayer in the school and abortion and where you stand against homosexuality. All that grows out of something called the Southern strategy, because it's interesting to me, they never say public education is a moral issue, religious issue. Health care is a religious issue. How you treat the least of these. We have to understand what's going on. Now, Jesse Helms, we talk about 1990, the black, but many people do not focus on his homophobia, particularly that was used in 1984 in his so-called comeback victory against Jim Hunt. Helms was 20 points down in the polls. I'm glad to be getting old now so I can remember some of this history. And I wanted to say this to my young activists so we all understand what we're dealing with. There was a strategy to drive down the numbers. Helms mixed two things. He decided to talk about the black radicals and the gays.
Yep, that's exactly right.
The black radicals and the gays. He took ads out. He even attacked Julian Bond, the former chair. Y'all remember that? The former chair of the NAACP, and said that he was the leader of the Black Pack. Then he attacked the gays. Now, this is 1984. Gay marriage wasn't on the table. Gay adoption wasn't on the table. Helms decided he wanted to criminalize gay sex. And his campaign brought ads in a local tabloid called The Landmark that funded a steady campaigns of claims. And back then, hams used the F word as a political word. It became the new N word. And it was all about the politics. And we have to understand that. And that's why the NAACP is in this fight. We understand this isn't about bathrooms.
That's exactly right.
This is about ALEC legislation, so-called religious freedom legislation.
Yes.
But these same groups are irreligious when it comes to standing up for health care.
That's right.
Which is a key biblical principle, caring for the sick. They don't say anything about living wage as a religion issue, which is all through the scripture. They don't say anything about caring for the stranger and immigrant rights and dealing with the poor and protecting children, which according to our own state constitution, the only Christianity or faith we ought to be talking about in the public square is in Article 11 of our Constitution. It says, beneficent provision to the poor, the orphan, and the unfortunate is the first duty of a Christian and civilized state.
That's right.
Yes.
That's Constitution, that's North Carolina Constitution.
Yes.
But they want to cover up this racism and this classism and this homophobia and try to split community and have us talking about bathrooms rather than the bad policies. Hate Bill 2. We cannot be silent in the face of this. And that's why we're saying unless the governor was straight on his desk and the legislators repeal HB 2 by April 21st, then the Forward Together Moral Movement, the NAACP, and our friends, we are organizing and planning now a campaign of mass sit-ins at the General Assembly, calling on people of faith, people of conscience to join as a moral witness against this unconstitutional and immoral legislation. We cannot allow this kind of codifying hate in our Constitution. Now, we want to pull back the covers on this too. Again, they use the sex piece, the trans piece, as a cover. That's an old Southern strategy. It comes from Kevin Phillips. You talk about one thing publicly, but it's code words. It's the same way they call a voter suppression bill a voter integrity bill.
Right.
Yes.
It's code. And we are calling on the media to unpack the code. So they say this is about bathrooms in Charlotte. But then you read section 2.
That's right.
And you found out somebody cut a deal with somebody. I don't know if it was the Chamber of Commerce or business leaders, because they say that a local municipality now cannot require their contractors to pay more than a minimum wage.
That's right.
Can't make their contractors pay sick leave or health care.
That's right.
That also means they can't say to their contractors, if you work for this city, the city of Charlotte, the city of Raleigh, you don't have to have so many women.
That's right.
Or so many African Americans or so many Latinos. This is deadly dangerous legislation. And they take that ability away from a city that wants to be progressive. These are the same people that are always arguing about local control.
That's right.
We got to unpack this. And who are they going to hurt? Black, brown, and poor white people. 62 million people in this country that work for less than a living wage. 54% of African Americans, 42% of all workers. So this is an anti-worker bill. That's why it's a hate bill too. It's not a bathroom bill, it's an anti-worker bill. It's an anti-wages bill. It's an anti-social uplift. The same people that always say poor people ought to work are voting against poor people working and making a living wage.
That's right.
Not only that, this bill says since 1977 in North Carolina, you could file an employment discrimination case in the state courts, 1977. That's some of the work that continued post the Civil Rights Movement. This bill undermines that.
Yes.
Yep.
Now watch this, my friends that are listening by stream the media. That means if you cannot file a employment discrimination claim in state court, it means you have to go to federal court,
Yeah.
which costs twice as much.
Exactly.
You have to go to federal court, which means you have to be able to have transportation because you do not have many federal courthouses in most of your counties.
That's right.
It also means you get cut the time. In federal court, you only get 180 days.
That's right.
In state court, you get 3 years.
3 years.
Now, it also means this isn't about my lesbian and gay friend, because if you're not allowed to apply for file an employment discrimination in state court, that's age discrimination.
That's right.
That's national origin discrimination.
That's right.
That's sex discrimination. I'm talking about heterosexual sex discrimination.
Yes.
That's discrimination if people are disabled.
That's right.
That's discrimination against young people. But they use the trans word as cover.
That's right.
And we've got to understand, and the governor had the nerve to say, well, this bill actually strengthens our discriminatory bill. So here's the logic. We write a bill to discriminate that actually helps in the issue of discrimination.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, and by the way, interestingly enough, by doing this employment discrimination piece in there, it affects veterans, it affects LGBTQ people, and guess what? They are so committed to using the law, using this legislation as code words for electoral possibility, that they actually wrote a bill against their own self. They wrote a bill that would discriminate against people on the basis of religion. Because if you're not allowed to bring an employment discrimination case in state court, one of the covered areas is religion.
That's right.
But that's the case with racism or any kind of ism. It always hurts everybody.
That's right.
Yep.
It always hurts everybody. And so this bill uses fear and hate. Comes right out of the Jesse Helms playbook, comes right out of the Southern strategy. Pat McCrory and Phil Berger, Tim Moore, and others who voted with this have decided that in the 21st century, they needed to resurrect the tricks of Jesse Helms.
That's it.
Hate Bill 2 uses fear and hate to hide its dirty tricks. And they were counting on us to be quiet.
That's right.
They counted on us in 212 to be separated and divided. But it'll never happen.
That's right.
We know what's going on. We've seen it before. We know what's going on right now. We will expose it as the whole nation already knows.
Yeah.
We will not be silent. Your tricks will not work. You will not separate. You will not separate. Grab somebody's hand. You will not separate us by race, class, gender, or sexuality.
Our sexuality.
We've seen it before.
We've seen it.
It was wrong then, and it's wrong now.
Yes.
And we're going to use every effort legally and morally to stand against it. And we say to the public, don't be fooled.
That's
Yes.
right.
This ain't about bathrooms. This is the resurrected tricks and the poisonous politics of Jesse Helms that morphs racism and homophobia in a way to drive the political electorate.
That's exactly right.
And we're going to call it what it is. It is not HB 2. It's Hate Bill 2,
Yes.
and it's wrong.
Yes. Amen.
Members of the media, are there any questions? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So describe for me what you mentioned if bill's not overturned by April 21, that you'll organize mass sit-ins.
Yeah.
Explain.
Yeah.
Give me a little. If you could give me some color on what mass sit-ins will comprise.
Well, let me say this first of all. The other thing we're going to do is during the course of this week, and Bishop Rawls, I've talked to Al, and I don't know if you want to speak to that. I've asked my attorneys to get together and actually craft a true anti-discriminatory bill. We're going to write something to show them what they could have passed if they were serious. You know, I used to be Director of Human Relations in the state of North Carolina. My job was to deal with, you know, discrimination. So I'm quite bothered by this in more ways than one. So I've actually asked my team to sit down. You know, it's sad that some of the same people that say they are pro-Israel, go to Israel and look at Israel's anti-discrimination legislation against gay people. I mean, not anti, pro,
That's right.
pro-gay. That was one of the biggest gay pride marches in Israel. They have some of the strongest anti-discrimination laws in Israel. Now, why is it that the people that's always claiming they support Ted Cruz and others don't say anything about that, the Tea Party? South Africa. Pull South Africa's constitution and read it. So we have a state that's not only backwards in North Carolina and backwards in America, it's backwards in the world.
Yes.
It's backwards in the world. So what do we mean by mass sit-ins? Take, oh yeah, your 14-point agenda. And we've been on this issue from 2006. Yeah, Human Rights Act from 2006. This is not new for us. This is not new for us. In the Forward Together movement and the moral movement and the NAACP. Mass sit-in. Imagine yesterday was the anniversary of the founding of SNCC, April 8th. They left after April 8th. April 8th started because of the sit-ins, partly was the sit-ins at A&T. What I can tell you, the color of mass sit-ins is what happened at A&T times 100. I won't give out everything we're planning on doing, but
A&T, I'm sorry.
the four. Remember North Carolina A&T? There were 4 young men that sat down at the Walmart, and they created a movement, and people continued to sit down and sit down. It didn't start it in North Carolina, but one of the biggest that we know about was at A&T in Greensboro, and there was this mass sit-in. Mass sit-in was utilized in the civil rights movement as a way of direct action and protest. And so when we talk about sitting in, we're talking about direct action. We're talking about civil disobedience, because we have a responsibility to challenge in love any unjust law. This law is unjust. We believe I believe it's going to be successful in the courts. We're looking at other ways we may file because of the basis that a way in which it impacts minority people and workers. It's just a bad bill. That's why we're pleading with the media. Don't describe it as a bathroom bill. Right. It's a hate bill full of racist and class-based and homophobic legislation. It's even a bill that's contradictory to the Civil Rights Act of '64. Let me stop trying to be a lawyer and ask Al if he wants to say anything. But, you know, I play a lawyer on TV. I'm not really one. But, I mean, that's why people are now looking at, is this bill going to cost us money in our public schools? Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you've organized the Memorial Monday protest.
And you know that's on Monday.
Right.
April 25th. And you know it's the anniversary of the first Moral Monday.
So is this a continuation of
Moral Monday never stopped.
Protests? Okay.
Yeah, Moral Mondays never stopped.
So is this just a continuation of it, or do you anticipate amping things up in some way?
Well, I don't like to use those terms.
Okay.
What I'm saying is on April 25th, if what Bishop Rawls and others and I have talked about, and we're going to be having some strategy, is that it didn't take them but one day to write a bad bill. They didn't even have any hearings on it. You think about how this legislation was passed. It's so wrong that people cannot stand by and watch this happen. And so what we're saying is to the 21st, repeal it. If not, on the 25th, we're calling on people of conscience to come in and engage in mass sit-ins. Forward Together Moral Movement, our partners, people of faith, clergy, to sit in and to sit down as a sign that we sit. This legislation needs to be sat down. This legislation needs to be taken down. This legislation needs to be undone. and because of the way it attacks our transgender friends and members of the human family, the LGBT community, employees, people who make less than a living wage. It attacks the elderly, it attacks the young, it attacks veterans, it attacks the disabled. That's what we're trying to get out, that this is just bad, bad legislation. It is the same kind of unconstitutional legislation that this legislature and this governor has had a propensity to do. That's what we're trying to help people understand, that you can't understand in a vacuum. They have time and time again passed legislation, and then the courts have said they were wrong. They were wrong on the teachers, they were wrong on redistricting, they're going to be wrong on voter suppression. They're just wrong. They were wrong on the marriage amendment. But that's why we say this is not about just them being right. They know a lot of times these things won't stand, but they use it as a political tool, which is why you cannot understand what they're doing unless you go back and look at the tricks of Jesse Helms. This is the politics of Jesse Helms revisited. It's the politics of the white Southern strategy. Find out who hates who and who fears who and use that as a political tool. Yeah. No, you're fine.
I'm a business reporter during the week, not a legislative reporter or political reporter. So what's the magic number of April 21st? Why are you calling for it to be repealed by?
Well, they come back on the 25th, actually, it's first day. But Thursday, since they normally, I think April 21st, if I'm not mistaken, let me see, 22nd, 23rd, 24th. Yeah, that's the Thursday. Normally the legislature meets Monday through Thursday. So we didn't say the 22nd, so we don't meet on Fridays. The governor should call us in and sit down. Let's write some real legislation. I mean, I actually feel at times, because I don't have a hate for anybody, I feel terribly sorry for the governor and the speaker. They're gonna go down on the wrong side of history. It's so bad. I mean, why would you want to be on the side of Southern governors of the past?
Yes. Right.
I mean, even if you are a quote-unquote Republican, why would you want to go down on the side of history of Jesse Helms in the 21st century? Why would you want to do that? Why would you want that to be your legacy? You have 1.6 million poor children in this state, but you focused on discriminating against gay people and black people and the elderly people. You have thousands of people unemployed. You have a public education system that now is spending less money than Mississippi per capita. But what did you choose to do? You didn't have a special session to fix Medicaid for 500,000 people, 30,000 of them are veterans. You didn't have a special section to raise the money necessary to have a top public education. You didn't have a special session to deal with any of that. You didn't have a special section to fix what you messed up with redistricting that the Supreme Court has said you were unconstitutional in doing. You didn't have a special session to undo voter suppression. You had a special session to try to use bathrooms as a ploy and a political tool to drive people to hate one another.
That's exactly
right.
Yes. Exactly.
And we know what's going on. And that's going to be your legacy. It's sad, and every North Carolinian should be terribly, we are the laughing stock of the whole nation.
True.
Even artists like Bruce Springsteen. I can't even sing. I don't even want to sing in the state. Good Lord. Other states talking about not allowing their employees to get approved state travel to North Carolina. How you gonna have a research triangle park? Yeah. All the real stuff we should be dealing with. And then on top of that, to try to do it in the name of religion. That's right. And we just came out of Easter when my faith says the Savior died for all people, died as an act of love. That's right. And mercy and compassion, unconditional love. And here we are passing 1 week after Easter, passing a hate bill.
Yes.
Just left church. I love Jesus. That sounds more like Pilate than Jesus. Yeah, it's so wrong. It's so wrong. And they think, and a lot of times they think, they often, these cynical people say, well, we can split the black community because black folk ain't that, no. We know a Trojan horse when we see one.
That's right.
We know discrimination. We know something that stinks, and this stinks, and it's wrong. And we say to North Carolina, read the whole bill.
True.
Don't get fooled. Don't allow people to use these code words.
That's right.
They perfected it a long time ago. Said we're not going to use the N word. We're going to use other words like cutting taxes and forced busing. That was the way that the Southern strategy decided. Then it decided, oh, I know how we can cause people to be divided, particularly in the South. Let's use the word gay. Let's use the word trans.
Yes.
Let's make that the new N word. And then let's go back and read. Let's go back and read Mr. Jesse Ham to see how he did it and how he mixed it all together into a poisonous form of fear and hate, and then infused it into the political debate.
Yes.
We must reject that. We must reject it, because anytime you use power in this, anywhere, but especially in this country, where the 14th Amendment guarantees everybody equal protection under the law, when you use power to infuse fear, hate, and discrimination, it is immoral, it is unconstitutional, and we cannot stand for it. Yes, sir.
Reverend, you talked about how this law has many different aspects.
Mm-hmm.
Your words, it goes way beyond just
Way
being
beyond.
a bathroom bill. And you've also, and others have called for its repeal.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any reforms to the bill that in your mind make sense, or is the only option that makes sense a repeal?
Well, you can't really reform something that's deformed from the outset. It shouldn't even be a discussion. It shouldn't even be on the books. It was a misuse of power in so many ways. It's so no. Yes, there's a reform, repeal.
That's right.
That's the reform. Repeal it. You know, when I first met with the governor before he ever took office, well, I said, Governor, if you come into office and you want to work on things like education and expanding voting rights, that, by the way, are not left issues or right issues, they're constitutional issues. They're not Democrat or Republican issues. They are constitutional issues. We'll work with you. But the only way this bill can be reformed is to be repealed.
That's right.
It was done wrong. It was, you have people in the paper saying they didn't even have time to read it. You have legislators now backtracking on it.
That's right.
Saying they didn't know that was in the bill because of the way it was rushed through. So no, it needs to be repealed and done away with. It has no place in our society because of all of the ways in which it codifies hate. We believe it is unconstitutional. We support and join those who have filed suit. We're looking at ways to even expand the suit because we believe that, as I said, there's so much race and other things in this bill, and which is why we can't allow people to discuss it in a vacuum. That's what they want. See, it's the same ploy that they did with the voter suppression. Let me just teach one more thing. You remember when they passed the voter suppression, what's the first part they passed? Photo ID.
Yeah.
So that what would happen? Everybody would be talking about photo ID. Then when they passed all the other parts of it, we kept calling it the photo ID bill. They want you to keep calling it the bathroom bill. That's what they want. It's trickery. And I would be offended if I was in the meeting. You know, I'd be really offended that you would pass a piece of legislation, stand on the floor and say it's all about bathrooms and whatnot, when you know that that's not what's in it. It's more in it. That's well, it's lying. It's really what it is. And a hope that we wouldn't read it, and a hope that we would get stuck again, just like we did with the photo ID, just like we did when they called the voter suppression bill voter integrity. I will admit they are shrewd. I'll have to admit that. But we're not going to stand for it, and we believe that we can call it out, and we hope that you will. And you should, because it's all in there. So they should not get away with a title and a first line read. By the way, one other thing, you know that in that bill also it says this bill will be enforced by the police power. Now, somebody ought to ask that question. What do you mean? What do you mean the police power of the state? What do you mean you're going to enforce not going to the state courts with the police. It's in there. It's in the bill. It says the police power of the state. Somebody said, well, that's standard language. I said, well, even if it's standard language, what does it mean?
That's right.
What are we talking about here? Are you going to arrest county commissioners and city council people if they choose to go ahead and pass laws that say we're going to require our contractors? Well, what do you really mean? Are you going to have bathroom cadets? I mean, what do you really mean? What do you really mean? Are you gonna arrest somebody if they decide that they want to push the issue that they need to file that employment discrimination in state court? What does that mean? And remember, the governor is not doing this as a Republican. He signed it as the governor of North Carolina in our name. You run partisan, but you govern for the whole.
That's right.
He governed for the whole. In fact, I've said a long time, and I'm through, you don't have Republicans in our legislature. You have some folk that have hijacked the Republican Party. Because if you go back and read Republican history, you didn't see Abraham Lincoln going around passing stuff like this. He was trying to save the Union. Teddy Roosevelt was talking about living wages. That's what he was focusing on. Teddy Roosevelt, public education, environmental protection, health care. That was Teddy Roosevelt's idea first. It wasn't President Obama. Eisenhower was a Republican. He was talking about, I disagree with a lot of things he did. He said public education was a matter of national security. Even Richard Nixon, who I have deep disagreement, at least talked about, pushed affirmative action. So come on, this is not republicanism. This is extremism. These are people that know that they're wrong, on the wrong side of North Carolina's population on every other issue. So now they say, oh, we know how to win. Jesse Ham showed us. Let's resurrect the tactics. And let's make trans and LGBT and gay the new N-word and just play on the fears of people. And we are declaring, not on our watch.
Not on our watch.